Hello there, I am Man in Yellow and welcome to a video in which we'll be looking at a couple of async matches on the rings. The rings is one of the new maps that people have been talking about a little bit because flyers are seen as being very strong here due to all of the, there's lava on the sides and then all of the abyss pits in the middle, or whatever you want to call them. And people have been saying that some flyers are too strong here compared to what they maybe should be, or that playing without flyers is too hard, things like that. So that it will be too hard for some players who have collections that don't have enough flyers or something like that. And because of that, I have been playing some matches on it without using flyers at all, just to see how it would feel. And honestly, I think it's kind of better to play without flyers. There's only really one flyer that is really strong on this map, and that is Noxious. There's also Frosty, I guess, but Frosty is just good on every large map. That's not really because of it being a flyer in this case. That phobia is just kind of the best win condition on large maps in the game. But Noxious is extremely strong here. Tooth Fairy is also pretty decent, but I actually think that it's mostly better to just play with normal phobies and some pushers and stuff like that, which you will see me do here. We're going to start with this game against Papu, in which I believe I go second. I think I go second in both of these games actually. And you can see how I play without flyers. Now, I do think that Noxious is extremely good on this thing, or on this map, so you shouldn't be playing completely without flyers, but you don't really need to force as many flyers as some people are doing. Some people are going very heavy on flyers and are bringing almost no normal phobies, and I think that's totally a mistake on this map. Hematic Ginsting is still extremely good here. Speedolas can totally be used, and they are actually pretty good if your opponent is playing Noxious early on, because Noxious has a pretty hard time against Speedola. And if they start bringing a bunch of pushers, you can just kind of try and hard rush them, or at least force them towards the top where they can't push you in. So I don't think there's anything that makes you forced to play with only flyers on this map, really. You can totally play normally. We see that Papu is just doing a pretty normal opener with a 1-key and a Murderwing. Murderwing is pretty used on this map. Personally, I think that Tooth Fairy is actually a better choice, because it just matches up better against many of the flyers that people are bringing. And it can also push or pull enemies into the Abyss tiles, which is good. I think they should maybe have put their 1-key here, but also it makes some sense to put a 1-key up here, because then you can take the top with the 1-key pretty fast. So that's also fine to do. You can see I just go for a 1-key with a creep, and then I believe I put something else out here too. Yeah, it's another 1-key. And I'm banking 2 keys because then I can go for Hevo 2.0 early on, which I very much like on this map. That does mean that I can't really protect against the Henrietta taking the middle point, which is pretty bad. Maybe I shouldn't even have done it this way, but that's just kind of what I tried doing. The only downside of not bringing flyers is that you can't really protect this middle very well early on as player 2. As player 1 it doesn't really matter, but as player 2 it's harder to protect this without bringing flyers. But I mean, I could have maybe gone Tooth Fairy with a normal 1-key if I were playing with flyers, and that could have been decent. Wouldn't really have worked here because they are over leveled, so my Tooth Fairy and Murderwing won't kill the Henrietta, I don't think. But in a normal game you would be able to go for a flyer there to protect the middle if you want to, but you don't really need to. You can also just do what I'm doing here and bring a Hevo 2.0 early. I really like creep on the map also, because if you're fighting at the top side of the map here, then creep is very good, just because it's hard for them to get cured. And if they have to go all the way back to the vault to get cured, that is a pretty big tempo loss. Also think that Henrietta or Sargassum are fine for the same reasons. I believe I also just sent my creep over to hit the Henrietta here, because I'm not really scared of the poison. I find that Henrietta poison can often just be ignored. Of course, depending on the game state and stuff like that, but in a lot of cases you can kind of just ignore it, in my experience. And I'm just bringing a lot of small phobies to fight them here, so that I can fight for panic points and bang for larger things whenever I need to. This will both help me like stabilize the board so that I don't get hard rushed easily, and it will also just give me enough power that they can't really fight me early on, because things like Cassowary and Creep are actually pretty strong fighters. I also don't know why they double hit me there. They should probably only have hit me once, but I guess they wanted to try and hold all of the penny points. This Muffet is actually a unit that I don't think is that great on this map, because it's very hard to pull anything into a Abyss, and it comes out a bit too slow. At least in some games. Here I bring Rambolina. This is a combo that I actually counter. Having Hero 2.0 and Rambolina together means that you are able to push enemies very easily. Like, even if they put a phobia in the middle of this thing, I would still be able to push them into the Abyss. And it's also just good for like fighting people and invading them, because the Hero 2.0 can push people backwards so that you get to poke them. The Rambolina is very fast for this map, so it can get to the top and be very annoying, can take penny points easily. It comes out very fast, it's online very fast, whatever you want to say. So that combo is pretty good on this map in my opinion. I could have also gone for Speedolas here, but I didn't really like that since they already had a Rage Argels out. So that's why I chose to not go for that quite yet. I think I still go Speedola here, because they go Noxious. And Noxious is extremely good on this map, so you probably want to be playing Noxious. This was just kind of a test to see what it would be like to play with 0 of the ranged phobies. Or not ranged, the flying phobies. I'm obviously using ranged phobies. Not using ranged phobies would be suicide on this map. Now we get a Hematic Ginsting out. Another very good phobia here. Hematic Ginsting is good on every single map in the game pretty much. Maybe a little bit less good on stuff like Phobopolis, but it's good pretty much anywhere that you bring it. It's just a very strong phobia. Here they choose to go pretty aggressive, which I think is probably a mistake, but they're doing this because they want to put pressure on my Hevo 2.0, and they don't really want me to just like take control of the top side of the map. What I choose to do here is that I kill the Murderwing so that I can push in with my Rambolina and kill the Ginsting that way, and also keep my phobies safe. And I'm mainly choosing to do this so that I can preserve the life of my Hevo 2.0. But also just because the push is pretty good. Moves the Rage Argels into a pretty bad spot where it can't hit anything and kills the Ginsting. I could have killed them in a way where I would deal more damage to their phobies and keep my other phobies a little bit more safe, but then my Hevo 2.0 would have been more vulnerable, which I didn't really like the idea of. I'm also just sacrificing my cat up here, because that means they have to spend attacks on it, and then I'm bringing a 4-key. This could have been most fighters. The reason why I chose Primate here is because I want something with a decent amount of health that can still get into the map. So I needed something with like, you know, like enough potential to go up here and fight if I need to. Could also just have been a Ginsting. I just kind of wanted to bring Primate because why not? And the reason why I'm banking a key instead of bringing a 5-key here is because I want Speedolas as my final part against the Noxious. And they are just bringing another big flyer. You can see here they are actually using a lot of flyers, which I kind of disagree with. They also had a Murderwing up here. I think this is way overkill on flyers. Like, Noxious is good. One of either Murderwing or Tooth Fairy is fine. And maybe you can play Rage Argels if they are very heavy on mechs. But I wouldn't even be bringing Rage Argels most of the time. I think you should just play for like normally good phobies, and then Noxious is extremely good here, obviously. But the rest of them, I wouldn't really care too much about out of the flyers. Noxious is like the main one that is very powerful here. Of course, you can also play for Frosty if you want to, but you can play for Frosty on every single large map in the game. It's just good there. You can also see how good the push is for me in this case. It moves the opponent's ranged phobies out of like fighting distance or whatever you want to call it for me. So I get to hit them and they can't really hit back that well. And I'm just taking the top point with my Rambolina because it's fairly safe up there. If they went for the Rambolina up here, they wouldn't be able to kill my Evo 2.0. So this is pretty much keeping it safe, and I can maybe fight with it next turn or on the following turn and get some pushes and stuff like that. And then we have the Spidola, which is very scary for them here because it's very fast and it hits hard, which is hard to deal with. So here they just kill my Evo 2.0, which is very expected. And they kill the Cassowary, which I didn't really expect. I thought they would kill the Hematic Ginsting, but that's actually better for me, so I don't really mind. And they're splitting up their keys a lot here, which is smart. I think they should have been a bit more aggressive with what they did, though. They should probably have put the Thunder Rocks up at the top behind their Pterodactyl instead. But it's not necessarily a misplay here. And we have the other Spidola coming out now, which means I am very much in a good position to hard rush them here. You can see that I brought a lot of these like 3 movement fast phobies and then some good 2 movement 2 ranged hitters. And that is kind of what I think you should be doing here. That is what I find the most powerful, at least. It's very good for taking the points. You can hard rush well with it. You have enough mobility and range to move around and fight phobies from the opponent. So that's just generally what I think is actually the best strategy here. And in this case, they are pretty much already dead because I have all of the points and I have a lot of fast phobies that can go on their hard. I even have a push from the Rambolina coming up, which I believe I use here to move the Pterodactyl out of the way so that I can take the last point. And you can kind of see how I use these pushes also with the melee phobies to like take points for free or move them out of the way or like push them out of range and things like that. And that is often how you want to be using your pushing phobies with this kind of playstyle, in my opinion. Also on this map, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but you really shouldn't focus too much on these bottom points most of the time, because they are very easy for the opponent to defend if they want to from their vault. I do kind of like bringing these tanky wonkies like Slayer or Numbskull down here, because you can take your own point and then you can go onto their point, which forces them to kill them, and they have a lot of health. So they actually waste a lot of time on that, and then you can be aggressive on the top of the map. So I think that's actually a smart idea to bring something like a Numbskull or a Slayer down there. I'm not really doing that myself here because I'm playing a little bit faster, but if you're playing a more controlling like game plan where you want to take control of the top part, then I can totally see doing that and that being a pretty good idea. That was the first of the 2 games. Then we will look at the second one, which is this one. On this one I go for Spidola a bit earlier because they went for a very early Noxious. And as I mentioned before, I think the Spidolas are pretty good for countering Noxious on this map, assuming that they don't have a lot of pushers. I think they also made a pretty big mistake early on this map where they just let me kill that Droney, which you obviously shouldn't do. But I'm also making mistakes in both this game and the other one, so it kind of evens out, I guess. I definitely still think that the best way that you can play on this map isn't just like spamming flyers. There are just better things to do. I do think Droney is a fairly viable opener on this map though. You just have to be careful of a Snowball, because Snowball kind of hard counters Droney. So that makes it a little bit less good, but you could still try and play for it if you want to. I don't really love it. I think it's better to go for a lot of 1-keys instead if you want to play aggressively for points. You go like 3 1 keys or 4 1 keys or 2 1 keys with a 2 key, and you just play aggressive that way. I think that's better. You can see here I'm already banking for the Speedolas because they went for this early Noxious that came out here already on the 4th turn, or whatever that was, 3rd turn I guess the Noxious came out on. So I'm just immediately going for Speedolas here because there's no real reason not to. And they probably realized that, or at least they realized that I am not bringing a flyer into the Noxious, so they are bringing Finnegan to try and like push my, what's it called, non-flyers off the map, which is pretty smart. I'm just going for it anyway though, because I think it's that good into them. I believe I don't go in here also because of the Rusty, and there's also a Hevo 2.0 even. But Rusty is rather scary when you're playing for something like a Speedola, or any melee phobie on this map really, like big melee phobies. Because if they get caught by the Rusty, it's very easy for the opponent to set up a Abyss kill on them, or a Pit kill, whatever you want to call it. So you have to be careful of that. But you can also just do what you see me doing here, which is essentially just ignoring the like setup in the middle and just going to the top to like take control of the top side and threaten their heart with the Speedolas. What this does is it forces the opponent to go up here and respond to this, and when they're doing that, the pushers become way less valuable because they can't really push you in very well into the Abyss. That's only really if you are in the middle part of the map. So just bring your big non-flyers to the top part of the map if you don't want them to get pushed in, or if you are afraid of them being pushed in, would be my advice. At least if you're playing like this. It depends on which big non-flyers you are playing with, of course. You would also kind of see me do that a little bit in the other match where I went to the top of the map. And I obviously can't even take the middle point here, because they would just double push me, and it would also instantly kill my Speedola, obviously. So I'm just going full out to the top here, as you'll see. Now this play might look a little bit weird. I'll explain why I'm doing this in a second, when I've just like moved all of the phobies. I'm also bringing Ruckus, because I think that's good if the opponent has a bunch of... Like you can see they're playing double pushers, so I'm just bringing both of the stasis, or whatever you want to call it, phobies that cannot be controlled. The reason why I did this up here, where I could have just hit with the Speedola, and then ran the Daisy forward and killed it, and then moved in, and that would have let me hold on to the snowball and move the blue Speedola in another way. But the reason why I chose not to do that is because if the Daisy is sitting out here, then the opponent can actually threaten it with these phobies and like do some stuff where they maybe kill the Daisy, or they at least put me in a very bad like position. They could also push on the Speedolas to put them in pretty annoying positions. By doing this instead, they can only really kill the snowball, and if they do that, they risk being pulled in a lot of ways where my Daisy or my Speedola would be able to hit them. So I like this kind of play better. And I'm also just taking the middle point back again here, which is another reason why I also brought a boomer, so that I can keep on reclaiming points. You can see the play actually works out pretty well here, because they aren't able to respond to the top at all. They are only just hitting my Speedola, but in this case I don't really care very much about that. I'm just going to go full aggression against them. And I'm also just holding onto my points as well as I can with my other phobies while being aggressive. So they both have to deal with the hard rush up here and my phobies out here, which will claim all of their points. So if they go up and try and respond very heavily to the Spidolas, then I will claim all of the points on the map and just hit their heart really hard and bring something fast to finish the job maybe. And if they go for these phobies instead, then the Spidolas will hit their heart for a lot of damage and they will just die. That is also why I'm bringing Daisy, because it's very high damage. So here I essentially just go all in on killing the heart, and I'm killing the Rusty just because it's annoying. I don't want it to like take any of my points. And I'm bringing in Clubster. This can both be used for like rushing their heart, but it can also just take panic points. And it allows me to bank a key so that I can go for Rambolina. And the very good thing about this play is they can't actually deal with these up here at all. The Spidolas are too tanky for them to kill right now. So that means they are essentially just dead, as you will see next turn. They do power me down a bit. But even if they weren't able, or if they were able to kill my Spidola here, like if maybe the Heat with 2.0 was in a better position or they responded differently last turn, I still think they would actually lose the game, so just me hard rushing them. And you can see that like in a second here why I'm saying that. Now they are like reclaiming some points and stuff, but it's just not enough. But even if we say that they killed this blue Spidola up here with a bit more damage and powered down my red Spidola, I'll still get a hit from the red Spidola on this, which would be for what, like 600, and then I would get 2 hits from this, which would be 1300 in total. This could move over and hit them for 5 on top of that. So that is a lot of damage to their heart then. And then I would also reclaim both of these points with my Clubster and my, what's it called, Ruckus, and I would be able to summon something like a Speed or a Rambolina or some other fast phobia if I wanted to. And I could totally still make a hard rush happen, or I could reclaim a lot of points so that they would die from that. So either way, I think they would die here, even if they had found a way to maybe kill my Spidolas or kill one of the Spidolas and power down the other. I'm also just hitting some stuff here to kind of prove what I maybe would have done if I weren't able to kill them on this turn. And they are dead here. So you could kind of see in those two games what I was doing. I was bringing some 2 movement, 2 range phobies, which are just good and efficient, and I was bringing some very fast phobies, such as the Spidolas or Rambolina, things like that, that can kind of support me. Clubster is also pretty decent because it's so fast, and you can kind of play for that kind of fast playstyle where you just take a lot of points and you kill the opponent. You can also totally fight them with this playstyle. I just happened to kill them in these cases, and I think that is a pretty good idea. You obviously don't want to play completely without flyers though. This was just kind of to test how that would feel for someone who maybe doesn't have Noxious and doesn't have any of the other good flyers either. Noxious is definitely something that you should be bringing here if you have it though. There is no real reason to play without Noxious because it's just really, really good on this map. But you don't necessarily need it to like play good games. Anyways, that was all I had for this one, so I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.